Welcome to part 2 of this Blender tutorial series where we're creating this industrial building. If you haven't seen the first part, then definitely check out the tutorial playlist. The link to that is in the description. So in the first part we modeled the first building here, and in this part we're going to be modeling another building which is going to be in the center between these two buildings. And if you'd like to help support the channel, you can purchase the tutorial files on my Gumroad store and Patreon page. The links are in the description. And then one more thing before we start, I want to let you know about my furniture and home asset pack for Blender. In this furniture and home 3D model asset pack, you will get 250 furniture and home Blender 3D models, pre-set up for Blender's asset browser and ready to add to your projects. Quickly fill in your 3D scenes just by dragging the models from the asset browser into your 3D scenes. The models have been split up into 5 different categories in the asset browser. The categories include office assets, living room assets, kitchen assets, dining room assets, and a combined bedroom and bathroom assets. There's also a free demo available that you can try out before purchasing. Check out the product with the links in the description, and you can also find the full product video with the link in the description. Alright, so let's get started making the second building. So I'm just going to hide this object for now just to get it out of the way. I'll press Shift C to center the cursor, and we'll go to the add menu. We're just going to add a new cube. And we just want to make sure that this cube is moved into the buildings collection. So make sure it's there in the buildings collection. Let's go to top view, and I want to move it back along the Y so that the front of it is right there on the X-axis line. Then we'll go into edit mode, we'll go into wireframe. I'm just going to deselect everything and then box select the back vertices, and we'll move it back by 2 more grids, so it's a total of 4 grids long. Let's also go to front view, and in object node I'm going to move it up on the Z-axis. Just stick it there so it's sitting on the X-axis line. Let's go into edit mode, and I'll go to wireframe again. We're just going to box select the top point here, and we're going to bring the top up so that it is 10 grids tall. So it's already 2 grids. So we'll go 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 on the Z-axis. And then we're going to select everything again in edit mode, and I want to scale it up so that there's 1 more grid on each side, so it's 4 grids long. So we'll scale it up on the Y, just like that, so it's 4 long. So in edit mode, I'm going to add some pillars, which are going to be on each side. So I'll add a loop cut, and I'll scroll my mouse wheel, left click and right click, and then we can scale these loops out a bit so that they're farther away from each other. We'll just make it about that high, and then I'll add another loop cut, and this one we're going to bring up here, but we're going to stick right about here so that it's 2 grids down from the very top. So we'll now go to the face select. We're just going to select these 2 faces, and we'll extrude them out a bit so that we kind of have those 2 little pillars there, make it about that far out. So I want to extrude them out so they're about 1/3 of a grid, so something like that is about good. Let's go to front view, and I'll go back into edit mode, and I want to add another loop cut. And this one we're going to bring up by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 grids, so just stick it about there. Then we'll add another loop cut, and this one we're going to put right above that other loop cut that we just made, and give it a little bit more space. Then we'll add another loop cut, and we'll scroll our mouse wheel, so there are 2, left click and right click. We're going to scale both of these out along the X, and we're going to scale them out pretty far like that, so we're creating where the windows are going to start. So let's press Ctrl R again here on the top, scroll our mouse wheel so that there are 3, left click and then right click so they stay in the center. So we're now going to have 4 windows here, and then right here this is where the actual sliding doors are going to be. So then these small windows here on the top, I want them to be square, so we're going to add another loop cut. We're just going to drag this down here so they're about square, or they're going to be slightly rectangular. So probably something like that is good. So let's now go to the face select. We're going to select each one of these faces. We'll hit the I key twice so that it's going to inset all of them individually. We'll scale it down, and then we can extrude them all back to make those windows there, those small windows which are going to be above the sliding doors. And don't forget to save your project. So we'll now add another loop cut, and this one we're going to place in the very center of the 4th one. So we'll go 1 grid, 2 grids, 3 grids, and then in the 4th grid we're going to stick it right about there in the center. So now we'll go to the face select. We're going to select all of these 4 faces here. This is where the sliding doors are going to be, or the window doors. And we'll inset these faces, but I'll hit the I key twice so it goes back to insetting them all together. Bring that down to about there, and then we'll extrude it back just a little bit, just like that. And then right down here, we are going to make 4 more windows, and they're going to be really long windows. So first let's add another loop cut. We're going to drag this up here so there's a little bit of space in between the 2 stories, so like that. Then we'll add another loop cut, so we're going to drag this loop cut right down here, and we're going to stick it kind of around where the human's knees are, so right about there. So I'll now go to the face select. We're going to select these 4 faces. We'll hit the I key twice to inset the individual faces. We'll make them a little bit smaller, maybe like that, and then we'll extrude them all back. And then let's add another loop cut here. We're going to drag this down. This is where the windowsill is going to be. We'll add another loop cut on the bottom here, bring that up for where the windowsill is. Now let's add some basic colors to the building. So we'll go back to object mode. Let's add a new material. We can call this light bricks. And then for the viewport display, we're going to make this kind of like a yellowish, kind of tannish color, but keep it kind of light. We'll add another material. We'll click on the drop down. And for this one, we're going to choose the window frames. We'll go into edit mode. And I do want to add another loop cut right here and then drag this down. So this is going to be where the windowsill ends. So now we'll go to the face select. And we're just going to box select all of that there. We'll just go down here and do this for the rest of them. So box select all of these here and that there. And make sure to go inside each one of the windows here and Alt Shift select all those inside there. We want to make sure we get all those faces around there. All right, so now with the windows frame selected, we're going to assign that. Then what we're going to do is just select the windows. So select those there and these window faces. We'll add another material. In the dropdown, we're going to add the windows and we'll just assign that. So there we go. Now another thing I want to do is give a little bit more space in between the sliding doors and these windows. And we're going to add a little dark piece here. So let's go into edit mode. We'll go to wireframe. We'll go to the vertex select. We're just going to box select this part here, bring it up a little bit, box select this part here and bring it down a little bit. So there's a little bit more space. Then what I'm going to do is just go to the face select and select one of these faces. We'll duplicate it. Let's scale it down a little bit so it's a bit more thin. And then we'll scale it way out like that. Scale it down a little bit. And then we'll just extrude it back in there. And select this part here and bring it back a little bit because we don't want it to be too far out. We also need to select everything and we'll press Shift N to recalculate the normals. And then if we just select this piece right here, we're going to add a new material. Let's click on new and we're going to call this black metal. And then we will assign that, and this color here on this black metal is just going to be a pretty dark color. So something like that. So now we're going to be creating those sliding doors, which are right here in the center. So we're going to actually do this in object mode. So we're going to make a new object. So let's add a new object and we're going to add a plane. We'll move the plane up and let's rotate it by 90 degrees. And let's go to front view. We'll just move it here. We can go into edit mode and we can kind of scale that down, scale it up like this. And let's just kind of move it here and fit it to where the sliding door is going to be on the glass window. Let's select the face and we'll inset the face. We'll just inset it down like that, and then we'll delete the faces. And then we'll select everything and we'll extrude it out and we'll extrude it back there just to give it some thickness. We'll extrude that out and just stick it here inside the window. And I think we need to press Shift N again to recalculate the normals. So let's go back to object mode and we'll add some modifiers to this object. So let's add modifier. We're going to add a bevel modifier. Let's zoom in here. We'll turn up the segments a little bit just to a 2, and we'll turn the amount way down so it's much smaller. And then we will just shade this object smooth. And then also let's add the weighted normal. So we'll click on add modifier, add the weighted normal here, and then let's actually use the shade auto smooth instead. So we'll shade auto smooth, and I want to add these same modifiers to the other object. So we're first going to select the main building, then we're going to shift select the other object here. We'll use Control L for the link and transfer data, and we're going to copy modifiers. So now this object here has the other modifier as well. And this amount here, I could maybe turn up just a little bit on the building so that the bevel is a little bit bigger. And let's select our sliding door again. And I think the sliding door amount of the bevel could be a little bit bigger as well. So I might turn up the bevel just a little. So now on the sliding door object, I want to add an array modifier to array them over. So we'll add modifier. Let's add the array modifier, and we'll scroll down here, and on the factor X, we're going to make it -1 instead of 1. And then we'll turn the count up so that there are 4 of them. Now you can see if I look here on the edge, it's probably not going to be exact. It might be too far or not far enough. So if we go into edit mode and go to wireframe, we can just box select this side, and then back in solid view, we can move this side, and we can just make it perfect so that the sliding doors are perfectly fitting so that there are 4 of them. So that's looking good. So now we can make some little hinges. So this is going to be one door, and then like this will be another door. So what we're going to do is add like some hinges here in the center. So we'll go to the add menu and let's add a new cylinder. This is a new cylinder in object mode. And right after you add the cylinder, before you click away or move it around, you can click right behind me here on the add cylinder settings, and we're going to turn the vertices to 16. So we'll bring this object up here and we'll scale it down so it's really small, and then we can apply the object scale, and we'll go into edit mode and we're just going to scale up so it's a bit longer, something like that. Maybe bring that down a little bit, something like that. And then in edit mode, we're going to duplicate it. And we're going to make another one here, duplicate it again. And we're going to put another one right down here. All right, let's go back to object mode and we're going to move this back here and kind of stick it there. And then we can add a bevel modifier. So we'll add modifier. We're going to add a bevel. Let's turn the segments up to just like a 2. And then we can turn the amount down pretty small. And then we'll just shade the object smooth. And then let's also add a material to this. So we'll go to the materials. We'll add a new material. And I can call this hinge or hinges. And then on the viewport color, just for now, we're going to make it a pretty dark color. All right, let's go up to the top of the building. And I want to add that lip there on the top of the building, just like we did for the other one. So we'll go into edit mode. We'll go to wireframe. We're just going to box select the top of the building and we'll extrude the top up. Just make it a little bit thick like that. Then if we go to the face select, we'll select the loop of faces there and we'll extrude it and then we will scale it. But then I'll use Shift Z to exclude the Z axis and just make it kind of thick there. And if I go to top view, I want to make sure that this part, the X and the Y are both going to be about the same amount. So I want this part here and that part here to be about the same thickness. So that's looking pretty good. And then we'll select all these here. So select that loop, also select that loop. And then we can box select all the faces on the top there. And then for this, we will add a new material. On the drop down, we're going to add that same material, the rooftop material that we've already added, and then we will assign that. So now we have that rooftop material. All right, so I now want to join this all together into one object, and then we're going to be again adding a mirror modifier to mirror it over to the other side. So if I box select all the objects, I'm going to duplicate them. We'll move them and we're going to move them to the backup just in case we want to go back to it at any time. So now to join these objects together, I'm going to select this object here, which is the frames of the doors. We'll go to the modifiers and here we want to scroll down to the array. We want to click on the drop down and apply the array modifier so it's actual geometry now. And then if we select the hinges and the door frames and then lastly select the house, I'll use Control J so it's one object. And then it looks like we might need to fix some of the materials. Basically, the material for the frames got removed, so we'll just use the L key just to select those parts of the mesh, which are going to be the frames of the doors. We'll go here to the materials and we'll click on the window frames and assign that. So they have the window frames material. So now we'll duplicate the building again and we will move the duplicated building to the backup again just in case we need it. So we'll save the file. And then in edit mode, we're going to select everything and move everything over on the x-axis. So now we can add another modifier and we're going to add another mirror modifier. And what I'm going to do is scroll down and on the mirror modifier here, I'm going to click and drag and bring it up to the very top of the modifier stack just because I do want it on the top of the modifier stack. And now again, we need to delete the sides and then we'll merge it together. So using the face select, we're just going to box select all the faces here on the side. So that there, we can delete those faces and then we'll delete that face, we'll delete that face. And this one here will delete that. And then on the mirror modifier settings, we're going to turn on clipping. So we'll select everything. And on front view, I can move it together. And because the clipping is turned on, it's going to merge together. And then let's just make sure that each side of the building is 4 grids. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So move that out a bit like that. So then the total building is going to be 8 grids long. So we'll save this project again. Now another thing that I realized that we need to do is we need to box select all of these faces right here. And these faces, let's go to the materials. We want to select the light bricks and assign that. So the light bricks are right there. So now here on this part, I want to delete these windows here and I instead want to add the main door of the building. So again, we will duplicate the object. We're going to move the object into the backup just in case we want to go back to it because we're now going to be applying the mirror modifier. So we'll go to the modifiers, click on the drop down and apply the mirror. So now what we can do is we can delete these windows and add a door instead. So we'll go into edit mode, we'll go to front view. Let's just box select all of these faces right here. But then if I go back to solid view, I don't want to select the faces on the back, so we'll deselect those. I just want to select those ones on the front and we'll delete those faces. And then let's see, I also need to delete that one there. And also this one here, delete that one. So now we'll use the vertex select. We're going to select that entire loop of vertices there around. And if you use Control 3, we can search for the grid fill and you can click on grid fill. And that should grid fill it. If for some reason it didn't work correctly, you can click right behind me on the grid fill settings and there's going to be an offset and a span and you can rotate the offset or change the span. But for me, that's going to work correct. Or if you want to, you can manually fill all of them. So now let's select all these faces here and we'll go to the materials again and we want all these materials to be the light bricks. So we'll assign that so they all have the light bricks. So now let's just select these top vertices right here and we're going to move them down for the door. So we'll just bring these down a little bit bit farther like that. So you can kind of use the person as reference. This is where, you know, using the person is really helpful. So kind of move this down so that there is a bit of space there because it is a door. So it should be somewhat large. So we'll now go to the face select and we're going to select all these faces here where the door is. And we're just going to delete those faces so the door is hollow. So let's go to object mode and we're going to add a new object for the door. So for the door, we're going to add a plane. We'll move the plane over and we'll rotate the plane. Let's go to front view. We're just going to place the plane right there where the door is. And we'll go into edit mode. We'll scale the plane down to kind of fit the door. Scale it up a bit and just fit it to the shape of the door. Let's also select the bottom vertices and move them down like that. So let's give the door some thickness. So I'll go here to the side and we'll bring it out a bit. And then I'll extrude the door forward or bring it back there. And I also need to recalculate the normals, so just recalculate the normals. Let's move this guy out of the way because he's a little bit in the way of our door. So now we'll go into edit mode and I'm going to add loop cuts here. So we'll add a loop cut here in the center and also add a loop cut here going back and forth. And the door is going to have windows. So it's going to be kind of like one of those clear doors because it's kind of like an industrial building. So we're going to add some windows here in the doors. So now we will go to the face select and we're just going to select these 4 faces and we will inset those faces. We'll inset that down to about there. And then we can extrude the windows back here. And also I want to be able to see through the windows. So if we go right here to the back of the door inside, we're going to select these 4 faces and delete those faces so that then you can see the windows right there. Now on the middle right here, the middle of the door, I want that to be a bit thicker. So we'll go into edit mode, we'll go to the vertex select, and in wireframe, we're just going to box select the center there. And we can just scale that up to make it a bit thicker. So now let's add some hinges here on the side of the door. So for that, we can just select this object and we'll go into edit mode and we can just use the L key to select the linked vertices. We're going to select these hinges. We'll duplicate it, move it down. We'll move it forward. And then we can use P and we're going to separate by selection. Let's go to object mode. We can select these and we'll shift select the door. Control J to join it together into one object. And then you can see it added the materials here. So let's just click on the minus here to get rid of all the materials for now so we don't have any of the materials. So if we go into edit mode now, we're just going to select those hinges. We're going to move them over and we're going to bring it here on the very side of the door. So just stick it there, bring it down, maybe scale them up a little bit so it kind of fits the door better. And then I'll bring the entire door back in object mode. So bring it a little bit farther back. And then just bring the hinges back like that. Now, one more thing that I want to do to the door is make the outer frames a little bit bigger. So if we go into wireframe in edit mode, I'm just going to box select all the inner parts of the door like that. And we'll scale it down on the X and then scale it down on the Y just so it's a little bit thicker. So I now want to add the same modifiers. So we're going to select the door and then shift and select the building. We'll use Control L and we're going to copy modifiers so it has the same modifiers. That way over here on the modifier properties, it has the bevel and the weight to normal. And then we can add the materials. So we'll go to the materials. On the drop down, we're going to start by adding the window frames. Then we'll go into edit mode and we're just going to select the windows. So just select the 4 window faces. We'll add a new material. And for this one, we're going to add the same windows that we added and assign that. And then we're just going to select the frames here or just the hinges. We'll add another material. For this one, we're going to add the hinges and then just assign that. And then also, if you haven't already, make sure you shade the object with the shade auto smooth. And that's looking good. Now, the last thing that I want to do in this part is just model the door handle. So we're going to use a separate object for this. So let's go to the add menu. We're going to add a cylinder. Make sure that the cylinder has 16 vertices because we don't need it that detailed. Let's move this up here. We'll go into edit mode and we'll scale it way down. Let's go to front view. We're going to scale that up a little bit, scale it down a bit. And actually we can just use a mirror modifier. So I'm actually going to make it a bit smaller and move it up here above the origin point. And we'll go to the face select, just select the front face and I'll bring the front face up and then we'll extrude it and rotate it and just continue to extrude it and rotate it to rotate that handle around. And we'll rotate that over and bring it out till it's going at a 90-degree angle. All right, then we'll go to top view. Let's move the object over a bit so we have a bit more space. And then on top view, we're going to extrude it and rotate it. And we're going to do the same thing and slowly rotate it over by 90 degrees so that it's going to go into the door. And then extrude that part out right like that. All right, we'll go back to object mode. So you can see now we've created it so it goes 90 degrees this way and then 90 degrees back. So we'll go to the modifiers, we're going to add a mirror modifier, and we're going to mirror it on the Z instead of the X. And then back in edit mode, we just want to select this bottom face here and delete the faces. And then we can select the entire thing. We're going to turn on the clipping button and just move it down there so it merges with the mirror. All right, and then in object mode, we can scale it down. We're going to bring it into the door here. Let's bring it over. We can also shade the object smooth so it looks a bit nicer. We'll bring that up there and just stick it on this side of the door. And then we'll add a material to this. So we'll go to the materials, we'll add a new material, and I'll just rename this to door handle. And for this, I'll just make it a slight gray color just for now. All right, so let's zoom out here. I'll press Alt-H to unhide the other object here, and we can just move this over here for now. We'll just stick it there. So we'll press Control-S to save, and this will be it for part 2 of the tutorial series. So we now have the 2 main buildings. So I hope you've been enjoying this tutorial, and thank you for watching. And again, you can help support the channel and purchase the project files on my Gumroad store and Patreon page. The links are in the description. So when the next part is released, it's going to be right up there on the end screen, and I will have the link in the video description. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next part.